But the angel said to him, do not be afraid, Zechariah. Your prayer has been heard. Your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you are to give him the name John. Luke 1 verse 13, hearing the voice of God. I keep on saying that the most difficult thing that we are having in our days is conflicting of informations. There are so many mouths that are speaking, and if you look at all those voices, they are geared towards silencing a certain voice, and that is the voice of God. Do your own research. You will find a person coming and telling you you're a fake pastor, without him saying he is a true pastor. You get that? Because the voice of darkness is trying to gain supremacy, but the voice of God cannot be muzzled. When this angel of the Lord, if you look at Gabriel, he said in verse 19, I stand in the presence of God, and I've come to speak to you and tell you this good news. So this is an angel who is speaking expressly or directly what God is telling Zechariah. So number one, when God speaks to your life, these are some of the things that the Lord releases in your life. Number one, do not be afraid. I think by now you would have noted everywhere God is saying, the Lord said, the first thing he says is, do not be afraid. So the voice of God quenches fear. The voice of God kills fear in you. You hear God right now speaking, you become bold, courageous, and very confident. And he says, your prayers has been heard. When you hear God speaking, it is God answering your prayers. God speaking means your prayers have been answered. And if there is a frustrating life you can live, is a life of prayer without God responding. Why? It is the worst exhausting experience you can ever go through. So the voice of God, God is speaking, whether he's speaking by himself or through an angel, but it is a divine communication. It means your prayers have been answered. Number 3 is saying, your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son. The voice of God conquers barrenness in your life. If you read verse 7, said, because Elizabeth was barren, so they had no children. But now the angel is speaking and is telling Zechariah, your wife will bear you a son. And we left her barren, but you have a son at old age, meaning the voice of God adds barrenness in life, sterility, impotence, futility, nothingness, and fruitfulness. When you hear God, barrenness expires. Why should we not hear the voice of God? And you shall name him John. The voice of God again gives you a name or a title of power and and a purpose. You shall call him John. That name is the purpose. Look here in verse 14. He will be a joy and a delight. Now the name is being explained. The name John says, he will be a delight and a joy to you, and many will rejoice because of his birth. For he will be great in the sight of the Lord. He is never to take wine. So when the voice of God speaks, the voice of God reveals the potential you carry. He is saying, he will be great in the sight of the Lord. When you hear the voice of the supernatural speaking to you, that voice reveals the greatness you carry. And then he says, he is never to take wine or other fermented drink. The voice of God gives you or builds in you governing principles for you to function in the supernatural. John was told there is no taking alcohol or sour porridge. As long as it is fermented, kombucha, he was not to take. As long as it is fermented, that's the word. So the voice of God builds in you principles, divine principles that allows you to function in the supernatural. Then he says, and it will be filled with the Holy Spirit even from the birth. The moment you hear the voice of God, you are left with the Holy Spirit impartation. He will be filled with the Holy Spirit even from the birth. That tells you what? When the voice of God speaks, the Holy Spirit must come in to make the voice of God become a reality. Going back to Genesis 1 and 2, and God said, because the Holy Spirit was hovering, when God spoke, there was creation. So the Holy Spirit must come. If you hear the voice of God, there is no way you can hear God and not walk with the Holy Spirit. Many of the people of Israel will he bring back to the Lord their God. The voice of God unpacks your mission. The voice of God details or elaborates to you your purpose or your mission. And it will go on before the Lord in the spirit and the power of Elijah. So the voice of God opens you for supernatural impartation or spiritual dimensions grafting. John will go in the spirit and the power of Elijah. But this is the son of Zechariah and Elizabeth. But it will be imparted with the dimension of Elijah in the power and the spirit, of which we know John walked in the spirit of Elijah but not in the power. He did not walk in the power. He did not perform miracles because he did not exercise the power dimension. So the voice of God makes you now arrive to a spiritual grafting with dimensions of greatness. Look here, how did Zechariah position himself to hearing this angel of the Lord? Because the angel of the Lord can be where you are and he speaks, but you cannot hear him. How did Zechariah position himself? We can highlight several things. Number one is altar of incense. If you look at verse 11, the angel Gabriel came and stood at the right stand of the altar of incense. That is a major point. The altar of incense. By the way, we are fighting very much about the message of altars, but these are divine principles. These are divine procedures. If you want to hear the voice of God, operate from the altar of incense. Remember, there are different altars. There is an altar of bronze altar, the golden altar. This now is a golden altar. Build to the Lord the altar of incense. Altar of incense. He was now burning incense on the altar. Understand those two things. Altar, the golden altar, and the burning of the incense.